Hey friends, thank you so very much for tuning in. I really appreciate it so very much. And a special shout out to my patrons. You're making such a huge difference for me and my little team. Thank you so much. So many of you are so generous. And I've been told so many times I have the most generous, supportive audience in all of the world. And I firmly believe that, actually. So a special thanks to those of you who also downloaded the Brave browser and installed that. It is a safe, private way to browse. It's faster than Google Chrome. And unlike Google Chrome, it won't spy on you. So for those of you who don't know about Brave and haven't downloaded it yet, I'll put the link below this video because the nice folks at Brave will give SGT Report a small stipend if you download and use their browser for at least 30 days. Hey, a real quick note though, more than half of you downloaded the browser but never installed it on your computer. So if you're hearing me now, if you're hearing my voice now, double click on the downloads, find that Brave browser, click on it, open the icon, and just follow the instructions to import it into your computer and start using it as your browser. Please give that another shot. So for those of you with children on the autism spectrum, like me and my new friend, Wayne McCroy, and for those of you who don't, but simply are concerned about vaccines, buckle up and listen to this one. We've got a special presentation here for you, a special interview. He's written a book called The Autism Epidemic, Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret. And I think for the purposes of this interview, I'm just going to title this one Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret, because any talk about vaccines in a negative light is not something YouTube or the powers that be approve of. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me here, Sean. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you know what, man? Your book has been dedicated to all of us who are struggling with these issues, and you yourself have 2 children who are vaccine damaged, and we can talk about all of that, and we're going to, but I just want to lead with this, Wayne. It's very important. The tyranny that we're seeing roll out from West Coast to East, and I say that specifically because of criminal Governor Jerry Brown, when he was governor of California, signing into law SB 277, requiring mandatory state-sponsored injections. And if you live in California and you have a child, they must get the magic needle. And it's very, very troubling. I thought it would be a line in the sand, but evidently that has not led to any sort of revolution in California just yet. And now on the East Coast, we're seeing a judge uphold mandatory measles vaccinations as New York closes more schools. Wayne, before I get your response on that, I want to play this clip from the Brady Bunch. I remember seeing this episode. I watched the Brady Bunch quite often as a kid. And in this episode from the Brady Bunch, Wayne, all of the kids get the measles, and they love it because they get to stay home from school and play checkers and bond and have great family time. What a crisis this measles outbreak in New York must be. Watch this, guys.
Peter, what are you doing home from school?
They sent me home. Measles.
That's either measles or a strange case of red freckles.
You have got a temperature.
They told me 101.1. What's the record?
Oh, are you sure it's the measles?
Well, he certainly got all the symptoms. A slight temperature, a lot of dots, and a great big smile.
A great big smile.
No school for a few days.
Say hello to my dotted son for me. Tell him I'll bring him some comic books and I'll see you later, dear.
Okay, honey, bye.
Boy, this is the life, isn't it?
Yeah. If you have to get sick, sure can't beat the measles.
That's right. No medicine.
Inside or out? Like shots, I mean.
Don't even mention shots. Yeah.
Measles, measles, measles. Well, all the kids have now had the measles.
So have I.
Well, I had them years ago. Looks like the Bradys are finished with the measles.
So, Wayne, the measles couldn't kill the Brady Bunch, but evidently everybody needs to give up their rights and their liberties in New York and take the state-sponsored injections. Your thoughts?
I think it's a little ridiculous on the face of it. The measles has always generally been considered a mild childhood illness. And honestly, there's also been some studies done just recently that show that if you develop a natural immunity to the measles, like if you contract it early in life, your immune system is actually bolstered because of it and could potentially fight off things like cancers later in life. So I think that it's a whole lot of hype over a nothing kind of a disease. If you want to look at the statistics of measles, the last time anybody in America died of a case of measles, it was in 2015. Okay, and this was actually, she had the measles, but that's not really what she had died of, but it was recorded that she had the measles. And prior to that, the last time anybody in America had died from measles was back in 2003. So you're talking in a 12-year period, you had one person essentially die of the measles. Now, if you look at the statistics from the VAERS reporting system, that's the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, which that goes back to the 1986 law that they set up, which gives vaccine manufacturers immunity from being sued for any damages that their vaccines do. If you look at that VAERS reporting system from the years 2004 until 2015, it's reported that there were 108 deaths that were connected to a measles vaccine. So by that math, you have 108 times better chance of dying from a measles vaccine than you do from the measles. So, I mean, if you take your risk-benefit assessment that way and look at it from that perspective, you have a better chance of dying from a measles vaccine than you do from the measles. So I don't know if it's really merited that, there should be all this hype over the whole thing.
Yeah, you mentioned something very important, Wayne. These big pharma companies have been given immunity from lawsuits, blanket authority to give your kid anything they want in these vaccines, and blanket authority not to be sued. The government is protecting big pharma because evidently, Wayne, vaccines are so important that these companies that make them should never be sued if their product adversely damages your child. And I'll tell you what, folks, children are being damaged in hordes. The autism rate in this country used to be 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 36 by some accounts. And I have a friend, Wayne, who literally texted me yesterday and then called. He was at the airport, ready to travel internationally with his family, and they were forcing vaccines on him and his family. And he called me very concerned to inquire about the yellow fever vaccine. I did as much research as I could in 5 minutes. I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't find anything too alarming specifically about that vaccine, but he said they were pushing others on his children as well at the airport. And I told him at all costs, avoid the MMR, the hepatitis B, and the DTaP. Friends, the person doing the most research in this area right now, in my opinion, doing the very best job, is Del Bigtree. You should subscribe to Del Bigtree's channel on YouTube called The Highwire with Del Bigtree. He was a producer of the show The Doctors and also of Dr. Phil, and then he made the documentary Vaxxed, and that changed his life. Also, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doing his best to sound the alarm on this vaccine crisis. And here's a tweet from Robert Kennedy Jr. about a little boy named Otto Coleman, paralyzed for life by DTaP. He's a 10-year-old little boy who's now wheelchair-bound because of vaccine-induced transverse myelitis. Now, I told my friend, avoid the MMR because it has been linked to autism. Avoid the Hep B because new research coming out of China is showing that the Hep B vaccine causes brain damage in mice, and the studies in this country have never been done. And they give the Hep B vaccine to little babies in the first week of life. And by the way, guys, you can only get hepatitis B if you are an intravenous drug user sharing a needle or through sex. Now, I don't know any little babies born in the first week that are involved in either of those activities. And the DTaP vaccine caused Otto Coleman to be wheelchair-bound for life. Wayne, this sounds like some sort of dystopian novel or movie that these companies and the legislators are moving as fast as they can toward mandatory vaccines, mandatory vaccinations, as they are in New York, as they did in California, as they are in many states around the country. Is this a line in the sand? Should it be a line in the sand, in your opinion?
Yes, actually, Sean, I do believe this should be the ultimate line in the sand. You're talking about a vaccination is an invasive medical procedure. Now, if you give up your right to deny an invasive medical procedure, that in and of itself is troubling. That means if you give them permission to do this, if you don't stand up and object to this and give them your consent to do this to you, this means they could do whatever they want. I mean, where does this end? You know what I mean? This is just one medical procedure that they could force on you. There's other ones they could force on you. I mean, you're talking, this does sound very dystopian. It sets a precedent, a dangerous precedent. They're not just going to stop at vaccines. And by the way, you're totally on target with saying about the MMR, the DTaP vaccine. The DTaP vaccine is the one that my son had a reaction to and nearly died when he was 3 months old. And that was terrible, and he's since then developed autism. And I directly relate it to the DTaP vaccine. Any of these vaccines that have multiple, excuse me, if they have multiple things in them, like the DTaP or MMR, these are called multivalent vaccines. So these ones, they usually have chock full of all different kinds of preservatives and adjuvants. And adjuvants are I think what is the key in these vaccines that are causing so much damage to people. Well, one in particular being aluminum. And
Right.
Once again, you said Del Bigtree, he's doing great work. I've been watching some of what he's doing, and it's good to have somebody like that. He had credibility with the mainstream media going forward, and he's actually using that to his advantage. Whereas guys like me, I don't have much media exposure. So I mean, it's good to see somebody like him who's got the limelight pushing this message, because this is a message that needs to be pushed. I think our children deserve better.
Yeah, well, you're 100% right. And here's the thing. I've said to my wife now many times in the past several years that I believe these vaccines are chemical weapons delivery systems. I think this is a eugenics program. I don't think it's just about big pharma profit, because if it was just about big pharma profit, they could clean these vaccines up. They could take the aluminum out, the mercury out, the thimerosal preservative, mercury out. They could take out the fetal tissue cells. They could take out the formaldehyde. They could clean these things up and still make billions and billions of dollars. Heck, I mean, in my opinion, at this point, Wayne, they could just give kids the placebo, the saline shot, and call them vaccines and still charge people. I don't care. But what they're doing is they're hurting kids, and they refuse to do the real studies. In this country, they haven't done any of the studies. As J.B. Handley pointed out on the show, The Doctors, that of the 36 vaccines, they've only studied 2. And of the more than 35 ingredients in some of these vaccines, they've only studied 1 ingredient. And yet these doctors continue to say, the big pharma vax pushers continue to say, there is no link between vaccines and autism. They just expect us all to buy that when it's clear that at least some autism is being caused by vaccines.
Right. And there's actually been some studies done that acknowledge that vaccines could actually be kind of a starter for autism. There's been other studies done, not necessarily vaccine studies, but studies that study the substances that go into vaccines that show how harmful they could be. Like I had alluded to earlier, aluminum being the key. I think this is the big thing that's causing so much damage to people. We're inundated with it from everything. They put it in your underarm deodorant. It's in your food. It's in the water. It's in the air. And they put it in high doses in these vaccines as an adjuvant. And what an adjuvant is designed to do, this is a substance that's supposed to kick your immune system into overdrive to try and fight off the disease that they put in the vaccine for you. So this is what they do. They put this in here as an adjuvant, and it's the most commonly used adjuvant in America, and it's aluminum. And this is causing all kinds of damage.
Yeah, and let me jump in and just say that as an adjuvant, here's what happens, guys. I've lived through this so many times with my little boys. I just wish that I had done the research, and it wasn't as easy to do back then. There's so many great avenues and resources now. Anybody listening to my voice right now, if your wife's pregnant, if you're the woman listening right now and you're pregnant, or you guys are thinking about having a baby, my God, do your research before you get the state-sponsored needle, because it's a life sentence. If your kid gets autism, it's a life sentence for that child and for you. And so what happens, this is exactly what happened to us, Wayne. Every time my kids, not every time, but quite often, my kids would go to the doctor for the well baby visit or the well child visit, and they'd get their vaccines. And then, a day or two, or maybe the same day, have terrible fevers. And that's probably the aluminum stimulating the immune system response. The brain swells in a lot of these kids, and then they get full-blown autism. Now, my kids didn't get the full-blown autism, and so different kids are affected in different ways. But the point is they overstimulate these immune systems. They put these toxins in the bodies of the children, and then when 1 in 36 kids in this country has autism, Big Pharma says it's not our fault.
Right, and I think that's part of the problem, because here's the thing. They actually did studies back in the 1970s. They've known since at least the 1970s that vaccines have the potential to cause immune disorders, autoimmune disorders. So they've known this all along. They've known that the ingredients in vaccines can cause these kind of things to happen. Another thing, that's important to remember here is some of these substances now that they're using, they're using nanotechnology in these things. You're talking nano aluminum particles. And it's been shown in numerous studies that if you have aluminum nanoparticles that are under the size of 200 nanometers, that they could freely cross the blood-brain barrier. And what this does is it causes a form of encephalitis in the brain, which could lead to further damage, which, could be your starter result for autism.
Yeah, and there's been so many whistleblowers, CDC whistleblowers. There's been whistleblowers that have come out and said, yeah, we knew that this was causing autism, especially in African-American kids. Again, I just think it's a eugenics program. It's not just about big profits. So let's talk a little bit about your book, Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret. Is it the nano delivery systems here? Is it the nanoparticles? Is that why you believe this is part of a transhumanist movement?
That's one of the factors in it, Sean. I actually started looking at the whole autism thing. I went back through the history of autism, and it's stunning some of the things I found. Honestly, there's a social engineering campaign going on right now to try to convince people that autism has been with mankind through all of recorded history and prehistory, and they're touting that it was an important part of our evolution, if you buy into the whole evolution theory. And that's provably false. Autism didn't appear until the very first use of the term autism came in 1911. So this is a condition that's only been around for about the past 100 years. So in my research, I've traced this back to the advent of the mass manufacturing of aluminum. This corresponds with the mass manufacture of aluminum, this time frame of when autism first appeared. So you're talking there's kind of a correlation right there. I don't know if you could call it a definitive link per se, but it just seems weird that the rise of industrial aluminum manufacture and the pollutants that come from that coincide with the rise of the start of autism when autism first appeared. So when you go from there and look at how they're using this, you could kind of see how the correlations are there. Now, autism didn't first become its own diagnosis until the late 1930s and early 1940s with the work of Leo Kanner. He's the first one that put autism on the map. Up until that point, it was just being studied as a subset of symptoms of schizophrenia. So people really didn't understand it at first, but they saw it happening in children, and they kind of thought it was like a precursor symptom for schizophrenia. So that's kind of how they classified it. So around this time frame, this is when the whole rise of like psychology as an actual science came about, is during these early 1900s time period. So they started studying these things more. And when you move on up into the 1940s, that's when Leo Kanner published his paper about it. And it still wasn't, really a recognized condition among most of the doctors. They still kind of classified it as schizophrenia right up until the 1960s. But during this time frame, something happened. Right after World War II, a group of people came together, and they were called the Cybernetics Group. Now, this Cybernetics Group was heavily funded by the Macy Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, and they started studying schizophrenia, and under schizophrenia, autism. And when they did so, they made some discoveries that are kind of shocking. Now, in order to better understand some of this, we might want to go ahead and explain what cybernetics is. Cybernetics could best be described as a holistic study of systems. So they study whole systems. They don't just study like one little specific thing here and there. This is a totally different outlook from what we're used to, because in school, they break up our subjects into we have math, we have science, we have social studies, we have English class, we have all that. So it breaks up whole thoughts into these little subcategories, and that's how we're used to deciphering things. But cybernetics takes a whole systems approach at things. So they look at things from a whole systems perspective. So they figured out what exactly causes this, and what exactly causes this, in a general sense, I'm saying now, is dysregulation of calcium neuronal channels. So once they figured this out, soon they started doing experiments, And one particular thing you could look at, there was a project called the Bateson Project, which was headed up by a gentleman named Gregory Bateson, where they were looking at folks with schizophrenia and autism and different things like this, and trying to figure out what the causes were. So later on down the line, the foundation that these gentlemen laid for this research led to the discovery of cybernetics, of the disruption in the calcium neuronal channels. That's what causes like some of these symptoms. So what this looks like from a physical perspective, if you're looking at it, what this does is when these calcium neuronal channels get disrupted, it causes a feedback loop in the nervous system. And what this looks like is, it looks like repetitive behaviors, trouble with communication, things of that nature. So this perfectly describes much of the symptoms of autism. So with that, from there, we could look and see what causes disruption of calcium neuronal channels. And lo and behold, I looked at some different studies in scientific journals and stuff, and lo and behold, aluminum causes disruption in calcium channels in the neurons.
Of course.
So, yeah, of course. And this is what they're injecting our children with. This is what kills me. They could make these vaccines without all the junk that they put in there, all the adjuvants and the preservatives and all the unnecessary things. Because vaccine science, when it first started, what they did is they used only the antigen, like whatever they were trying to vaccinate you from. They just used that. They didn't add all these other ingredients to it. And I think that's a part and parcel of what a lot of the problem is. And this is what a lot of it stems from. Now, it's not to say vaccines are the sole cause of this. I think it's a synergistic thing. Like I said, our atmosphere is loaded with aluminum. If you want to think I'm nuts for talking about chemtrails are a real thing. They've finally just been admitted to. You're talking, this is known as things like geoengineering, solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection. Look up any of those terms. This is really going on. They're spraying us, and one of the common elements that shows up in this chemtrail spraying is aluminum. Aluminum, barium, and strontium. They're the three most common ones, and barium's also used in the MMR vaccine, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be concerning in and of itself, because barium is known to be harmful.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. The calcium neuronal channel disruption that you cited is something I want to circle back to, because is there a fix for it? Have you, in your research, found any treatments that might help reverse or at least remedy that to some degree?
Well, there are different things you could do. There are chelation therapies and stuff that some people swear by. The problem with that being is if you develop autism from this, that damage is permanent. That's the thing. It causes permanent damage to your brain. Like these aluminum adjuvant nanoparticles, if they cross your blood-brain barrier and cause encephalitis, that damage is permanent. And that's the problem. And I haven't really found anything that necessarily reverses that. But some people use chelation therapies to like minimize the damage and help some of the symptoms. Now, one supplement I could recommend that works really well for this is cilantro. And it's a natural food. You could also buy it in capsule form or whatever, but cilantro is a good one for this chelation therapy. So that's one avenue you could look at with this. Okay. But the bigger picture, I think, is looking at, like you said, is there a way to reverse this? Well, I firmly believe that using this cybernetics approach to it, that they've kind of found a fix for this, and their fix is going to be what they call the transhumanist singularity. And that will be merging man's brain with computers in order to reverse some of these damages.
Here's something I think we can both agree on, and I brought it up earlier in the interview. I believe these are chemical weapons delivery systems. And I guarantee you that the people at the very tip top of this world, the deep-pocketed billionaires and the people who really know what's going on and are part of this plan, they don't vaccinate their kids. I can guarantee you that the ruling elite in this world do not vaccinate their kids. And it's just a shame that so many of us are brainwashed and have been brainwashed into doing so at the peril of our own kids. And if you read the ingredients alone, had I just read the ingredients on these vaccines, back in 1998, 1999, 2000, 2001, had I just taken the time to do that, I'd have to believe that I would have made a different choice. Maybe not. Maybe I was still so brainwashed. Well, trust our doctors, right? Indoctrinated since birth to trust our doctors. You know, at the opening of your book, you have a very important passage here from the Bible. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. And that's 1 Corinthians 3:16 and 17. And the point there is that God made us in his own image, and he gave us this beautiful immune system that, if left alone, will do its job. And that takes me back to the Brady Bunch. As they pushed the measles mandatory vaccinations on New Yorkers, which is the MMR vaccine, which has caused so much autism, these people are beyond the pale. These legislators are in the pocket of Big Pharma. And I again, for me, Wayne, this is a line in the sand that cannot be crossed. There's nothing more tyrannical than a government saying, you don't own your body, nor do you command or own your children's bodies. We do. The state does. Big Pharma does. To me, this is as dystopian as anything I could have imagined as a child. This is worse than Orwell's 1984. This is worse than Brave New World. This is, I don't even have a word for it, Wayne.
No, I hear you, Sean, and I agree with you 100%. I believe also vaccines, they're a biological weapon system, pretty much. It's chemical warfare on the masses. And this does tie back to the whole eugenics push back in the mid to late 1800s and all the way on up through the 1900s. And this is part and parcel of what's going on. And I also address that in my book as well. There is a eugenics factor to this. What they're going to do is they're using these to kind of weed out the chaff from the wheat. And that's how they view it. So what they want to do is they want to advance into a new age. They're using this whole transhumanist thing. I don't know how familiar you are with transhumanism or the concept of what it is. But basically, these people want to merge with machines and computers and become gods of this place. They want to be God. They want total, absolute control over everything, and they want immortality. And how they view it is they view us, the masses, the public, they view us as what they call profane, okay? They think that we're lesser than them. They think they're greater than us, and they want to become these transhuman gods, and they intend to wipe the rest of us out. That's what their intention is through this eugenics movement. That's what eugenics is all about. It's all about the new age, and that's what these guys are. They're new agers, and it sounds a little ridiculous, but the transhumanist movement is the new age movement. It's the same thing. It's part and parcel of the same thing. And they really believe that they could use this transhumanist singularity, they call it. This is the point at which man will merge with machines completely and to become something different, something human plus. That's what they call it. This will be the next step in evolution. This is what they believe, okay? This is not what I believe. This is what they believe, and this is what they're pushing for. They want to become gods, and they have no place in their new age for those of us that they consider profane. So, they have it written in stone even. If you go look at the Georgia Guidestones,
right? They
plan on, taking the population of this place down to 500 million. So, this is what they intend. Their intentions are written in stone. This is what they want. And I'm just out sounding the alarm. I'm warning people primarily about this transhumanist movement, and secondarily, this whole autism epidemic that goes along with it. They're using the autistic population as test subjects for their new cybernetics advances and their technological advances. So these neural brain interfaces, these brain computer interfaces and stuff they're coming up with, Elon Musk's Neuralink, I predict in the very near future they're going to come out and advertise this thing as being a potential treatment for autism, and they're going to use it as a treatment for autism, and that's how they're going to get their foot in the door with the public to get this transhumanist rollout started. They're using people on the autism spectrum as test subjects for new drugs and new technological therapies. And they're doing this because they're testing out the equipment. This is it. They're using them as canaries in the coal mine. And as the parent of 2 autistic children, this irks me to no end. I just can't stand by idly and watch this going on when I know this is going on. And people might think I sound nuts, but trust me, I'm well researched on this. I know the autism epidemic inside and out, and I know the transhumanist movement inside and out. And these people mean business. They plan on becoming God, and they'll step all over you and stomp you out of existence to get there.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins, I think, even said once, I think it was Richard Dawkins. I remember seeing an interview on YouTube where they were interviewing him and asked him about this kind of thing. And he said he intends to become God. That's what he wants to do. And if anybody gets in his way, he'll get rid of them. So I don't know if it was Richard Dawkins, now that I'm thinking about it. It was some other scholar. But,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what Richard Dawkins did say at the end of the Ben Stein documentary, the name of which escapes me. Maybe it was called Unschooled. No Intelligent Design Allowed. Great documentary. At the end of that documentary, Ben Stein is interviewing Richard Dawkins about how life first started on this planet, going all the way back to the first single-celled organism. And Richard Dawkins backpedaled and backpedaled and backpedaled because he couldn't explain the first spark of life. And of course, these atheists always come back to the Big Bang as opposed to God spoke it into being, as the Bible would tell us. And so when pushed to the very first spark of life on this planet, Richard Dawkins acquiesced that, well, perhaps aliens seeded life here. So he cannot make the extrapolation or the leap of faith that God created life here, but he's more than willing to say aliens created life here. That's what these atheists do. And you're right. It is a plan to control the world. They themselves want to be gods. And it reminds me of the Tower of Babel. The other thing that these vaccines remind me of is the opium wars in China. When the British tried to destroy China with opium, I think the elite are trying to destroy our families with vaccines. Because when you have autism, when you have children with autism, especially those poor souls with children with profound autism, these 20 and 22 and 25-year-old men now that are still 2-year-olds in diapers, it is the saddest thing in the world. It destroys families. And that's what the elite have always wanted to do. Separate the mother and father. Destroy the families. Destroy the inner cities with drugs. Destroy the black families. Destroy, destroy, destroy. That's what they're great at, Wayne. They're great at destroying all that is good, all that is created in God's image. And at the end of the day, that's what irks me. These people are truly, truly evil.
Agreed. And that's the whole thing. I mean, they're just looking at their own personal benefit in all of this. They have no care for our health. Don't let this vaccine things fool you. This is not about public health. No way, no how. They don't care about your health. That's not what it's about. It's about control. That's what it's always been about, control.
Yeah.
They view you as a herd animal. That's basically it. You're property of the state. You're a herd animal. And this is giving them their consent to do that to you. If you don't speak up and step out and say, no, I'm not doing this. This is the line in the sand. We're not going to allow this. They're just going to go ahead and roll right over the top of you, and then they'll consider it that's your consent for them to do it. And that's not right. And that's what these people are all about.
Let me ask you something else in the 10 minutes we have left with each other here. First of all, tell people how they can find your book. How do they get your book? And then I want to talk about the gender dysphoria. You've got a couple of lines in here, pages in your book about autism and gender dysphoria. We continue to see this transgender movement being pushed on people in this country. And the idea that they're shoving down kids' throats now that there are no sexes and you can choose to be a man or a woman regardless of your biological birth. So first of all, how do people find the book? How do they get the book? And then let's talk about this gender dysmorphia and autism.
Okay. First of all, my new book is called The Autism Epidemic, Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret. It's available now on Amazon. It should be available very soon through all the other fine book retailers. It just released this past week. So it's still brand new. It's out there. You can find it on Amazon. I also have another book. My first book is called The Alchemical Tech Revolution, Fulfilling Ancient Esoteric Agendas Through the Use of High Technology. That one's also available through any fine book retailer at this point, too. They're both interesting reads. I put many, many years of my life into research into these things. And I would appreciate if people would pick them up. Also, if anybody wants to get in touch with me personally, I could be reached at alchemicaltechrevolution@gmail.com, or I also have a Facebook page called Files from the Conspiratorium. And that's where, I do a lot of posting. So if people want to get in touch with me through those vantage points, they can. And I'd appreciate if they would take a look at my book, because there's a lot of research into this, and it's a very personal topic for me. I have two children on the spectrum. So from there, let's go ahead and we'll address your question about gender dysphoria. Now, autism is a spectrum disorder, correct? So that means there's, all different people have different variations of symptoms on the spectrum. Well, they're trying to make gender into a spectrum. And the reason they're doing this has to do with an agenda called post-genderism. And this could be considered to be synonymous with transhumanism. And this is what it's all about. They want to end gender. They want there to be no gender. This is one step further to merging us with machines and making us all machines. This is all about transhumanism. And that's basically what this whole transgender push is all about. It's a system, okay? Let's put it this way. This is a tool that they use to switch social norms around. And it's a tool called the Overton window. This is shifting the Overton window. What this Overton window idea is they'll introduce new bizarre ideas to the public and gradually shift what the public will view as being acceptable. Now, this all started out, first of all, with them trying to normalize gay marriage and things like that. That's all pretty well, at this point, considered to be a normal part of society now, right? So the Overton window switched there. It shifted over. And now they've been pushing this whole transgender agenda, where they're shifting this Overton window over further to make all of this anything goes mentality. Gender is, a spectrum kind of thing. They're trying to make this the new norm. So pretty soon you'll start to see more and more bizarre ideas being introduced. And the whole point of this is a push towards what they call post-genderism, which, like I said, could be considered synonymous with transhumanism. They want to end gender. They want to make it so that gender is no longer a thing at all. You could be whatever you want to be. Pretty much that's the whole premise behind it. And they see it as being a good thing, and they're going to use technology to get there. And this is actually addressed in a white paper called Post-Genderism Beyond the Gender Binary. I recommend, if you could find this white paper online, look it up and read it. It's very telling. And this points out directly to the transhumanist push behind this. So post-genderism, think of it as being synonymous with transhumanism. And this is their end goal. This is what they're looking for.
In your learned view, is this satanic in nature? Are these people Satanists, many of them? And I ask because this whole move of the Overton window, the shifting of the Overton window, is 100% spot on. And when you talk about it, it reminds me of Tom DeLay warning that there's a move to legalize or normalize 12 perversions, including pedophilia and bestiality. And if they want to remove gender from common sense and from our worldview and from the worldview of children, it just reminds me of Aleister Crowley, do as thou wilt, which is obviously Satanism.
Well, it depends. I mean, you could look at it from that perspective. As Christians, yes, we would call that Satanism, but some of these people are a little more nuanced with their terms. Many at the top are either what you call Luciferian, or they have no religious belief at all. The thing is, they don't believe that they're serving Satan per se, or they're serving Lucifer. They believe in basically, what do you call it?
Humanism.
Humanism, right. Secular humanism. That's basically their core belief. Secular humanism, and they use moral relativism to kind of justify what they do. They really have no moral compass, and that's the big problem right there. They may not consider themselves Satanists, but I mean, when you look at it, there's an evil spirit about at work in this whole thing, no matter what you call it, whether you call it Satan, Lucifer, whatever you want to call it. Or if you just want to, think that it's all just man being self-seeking, however you want to view it, there's definitely an evil spirit behind all of this.
Yeah, there sure is. I don't know how people who work for these big pharma companies can sleep at night. I actually know a woman because of a sport that my son was involved in for several years. She works for Merck. She makes a ton of money working for Merck. I know this because they built an incredible house a few years back. And knowing what Merck has done just with the HPV vaccine alone, taking the lives now of boys as well as girls and maiming girls, and it's just, I don't know how these people sleep at night. I really truly don't. And it's a puzzler to me. And and she's not an overtly evil person. She's quite pleasant and nice, but she works for a company that is damaging people. And I don't know, man. We really have our backs up against the wall in this country, especially if legislators are going to mandate that you and your family are going to get forced injections. There's just nothing more Nazi-esque than that, and it is absolutely dystopian. Wayne, let me ask you one more thing before we let you go. How adversely affected are your sons? Where are they on the spectrum?
Well, actually, my son is high functioning. He has what they commonly refer to as Asperger's syndrome, which is a higher functioning form of autism. He also has a comorbidity of extreme ADHD along with it, and a couple other things like oppositional defiant disorder and things of that nature too.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of him. He's come a long way. He's come really far from where he was. Also, my daughter is also on the autism spectrum, and she's kind of got mild symptoms as well. So they're both like on the higher functioning end. So I've been fortunate in that regard. But I mean, it doesn't make it any easier. People look and they see these kids with high functioning autism, and they think that they look relatively normal. And if you're not familiar with them, they just seem a little quirky, and that's it. And that people view this as normal, so they don't see the challenge or the disability that goes along with it. Right. And it's very real, and it's there. And we as families who deal with it 24/7, we see them at their worst. The public doesn't see them at their worst; they see them at their best, and that's one of the challenges too.
Yeah.
And there are people who do have more severe forms of autism who are nonverbal, and my heart goes out to those people, those families, because like you said, this is something that could definitely tear families apart. It's challenging enough with children on the higher end of the spectrum, like the higher functioning end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what some of those families go through.
Yeah, your experience sounds very, 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 very much like ours, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that off the air here. Well, do this for me. Before we part ways, I'm not a fan of Amazon at all. Can't stand Jeff Bezos. He's destroying the little guy, destroying mom and pop shops across the country, across the world, and that's his goal. Tell people how they can get the autism epidemic, transhumanism's dirty little secret, anywhere else than Amazon.
Okay, all you got to do is go in your Google browser and type in the title of the book. It should start showing up anytime now in places like Barnes & Noble and any of your other book retailers. So if you want to look that up, it's called The Autism Epidemic, Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret. So be looking for that because, like I said, I put a lot of time and effort into this book. It's well-researched. It's thorough. I cite a lot of sources, scientific peer-reviewed sources too, not just any old blog post or something like that. This is, like I said, well-researched. This is, I've spent a large portion of my life looking at this stuff, and I figured I need to get this out to the public. So if you could check it out, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you for writing the book. Thank you for taking the time to put some skin in the game and take these people on because, as the old saying goes, if not you, who? If not now, when? And again, a shout out to Del Bigtree, who I've never had the pleasure of speaking with. Hopefully will someday soon. What a warrior. What an absolute warrior. He made that movie Vaxxed. I suggest all of you seek it out and watch it. He made that documentary and it changed his life once he realized what was really going on, the real cover-up, the real collusion to damage our families and our children, and the fact that these big pharma companies can never be sued when they hurt you or your kids. It's just as un-American as anything I can think of. Wayne, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, John, for having me on. I appreciate it greatly. You have no idea how much it means to be able to get this out to the public because we need to speak up and not let this stuff go on anymore. like I said earlier, our children deserve better.
They sure do. And guys, if you're in New York, I've got 3 words for you. Do not comply. All right? Mandatory vaccinations is the line in the sand, just like the Second Amendment is the line in the sand. If they demand you turn in your guns, do not comply. If they demand you take the state-sponsored needle and just trust them, do not comply. Liberty, it's all we have, folks. Once we give that up, we're slaves. Our guest has been Wayne McCroy. The book is The Autism Epidemic, Transhumanism's Dirty Little Secret. Be sure to seek it out. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For real news 24/7, seek out sgtreport.com. Also check out thephaser.com, where I hand select videos for you on a daily basis that now, because of YouTube's changing algorithms, you'll probably miss. And thelibertymill.com. It's real news 24/7, guys. Thank you so much. Especially a shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much. You're also generous and wonderful. Couldn't do it without you. God bless. Bye-bye.
I personally believe that Julian Assange will be very well looked after, and they will deliver him to President Trump. But let me tell you something now, they will not dare harm a hair on his head.